I just welcome you to this EMCC Global GPS dialogue. This is the third of a three-part. It's great to see so many familiar faces here again. We've looked at needs and challenges, and now needs and challenges, and we're going to look at solutions for this strange world we're currently living in. So I'm going to pass it directly over to Geetu.
Okay, thank you very much, Nicola. Let me just start by welcoming everybody. This is third of our three dialogues, and it's great to see that some of you in this call have been here in this collaboration since the very start, and it's also great to see some new faces as well. So I'll start by setting out what this dialogue is about, and then what we'll do is a recap of the previous two dialogues before we jump into the third dialogue. So I know that you'll hear this kind of doorbell sound every time somebody joins us, but that makes us able to welcome other colleagues joining. So let me start by saying the topic is issues and opportunities in the coaching profession. This has been an important sort of three-part series where, as Nicola said, we started by looking at needs, then we looked at challenges, and today we're looking at solutions. So the way this will work is that we're going to be using the chat throughout. So we encourage you to open the chat window, and we'll be encouraging you to use chat everyone at various times. Please do keep your webcam on, and if you can mute your audio, it enables the recording quality to be as good quality as it can be. Of course, unmute when you're ready to jump in. We want to get as many voices as possible, particularly with this solutions theme. We're going to be doing a sort of collective brainstorm on solutions. So we want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to chime in. And Nicola and all of you have been helping to rename your screen names. And I know, Rory, you can't stay with us till the very end, but it would be great if everyone else is able to stay. So the intention is to come together and to co-create the way that we want to go forward as a body of coaches, mentors, supervisors, human beings, members of our community and neighborhoods and organizations. And the idea here is that the outputs of this dialogue will be shared back as part of the, it looks like it's now a November GPS summit, date yet to be announced. So that's where we're going with this. So dialogue 3, the theme is, how do we resolve the needs that we expressed earlier in order to generate the right solutions? So the idea of this being a dialogue rather than one person coming into this as the expert on the theme is that we absolutely believe that no single one of us has the answers, and that we might get to the answers together in dialogue. And so the goal is very much to discover what emerges and to create a shared understanding. So this dialogue series has had interest from many different parts of the world. It's great to know that we have been able to come together and hear perspectives from different parts of the world. And as I said earlier, everybody is very welcome. And we also have some members of the EMCC Global organization here with us today, as well as coaches, team coaches, supervisors, mentors as well. So in terms of a brief recap on the needs, we have, for the benefit of those who are here that are new to the dialogue, we started by asking, where are we now in our everyday sort of work lives? And the questions that we asked in the first dialogue were about, what are we learning? What are our fears? And what are we seeing as our role? And from that, we created and heard a number of metaphors. So I'm just going to briefly play a short video. And as you watch this 1 minute of metaphors, I want to invite you to do what I call 4 square breathing, which is to breathe in to a count of 4, hold for a count of 4, breathe out to a count of 4, and then notice the space of 4. and just allow these metaphors to kind of wash over you as a summary, collective summary of where people were in the first dialogue. Oops. So with those metaphors, what became very apparent in the first dialogue that we had together was that many of the contributors to that dialogue saw that we have a huge opportunity as a collective group of coaches, mentors. And there was both an anxiety and fears expressed about the mental health of our clients as well as the mental health of ourselves collectively. So there was this notion of épanouissement, this opening up to our full potential, to be a significant force for change in the world. And what struck me in that first dialogue was that this was also expressed as an opportunity for us to do our best work whilst also feeling the uncertainties and the anxieties of the situation. So from that part of the first dialogue, we then went on to, from those metaphors, we went on to articulating our needs collectively. And what we asked were, what are our needs as coaches and what role can we play? And linked with that, what are our aspirations? And what was important there with those two questions is that, firstly, on needs, there was a big sense on needs that we need connection, we need alignment, we need sounding board in each other. We need to be able to be with like-minded people to help inspire and give help to normalize what's going on in the world right now, to have space and to breathe what's now in the past, and to bring more consciousness into our professional roles in our communities, in our neighborhoods. Of that, the role really was articulated as activating the care and compassion that we need, that the world needs. So the roles were articulated as both holding the space, but also challenging the deeper exploration that is needed, and role modeling what we need to do by showing up as our best selves, and also having patience to do this exploration. And one person described it as being a conductor, so bringing meaning to the exploration that is needed. And then the final part of that first dialogue was all about our aspirations. What does utopia look like for us as a body of coaches, mentors and supervisors? And what was really key there was this notion of consciousness, the notion of co-creating what is needed rather than having, you know, an expert voice. So it was all about changing and acting meaningfully to create the inclusivity that the world needs, whilst at the same time feeling the fear of not knowing how to be and not having a shared belief yet of what we actually want. And so from that, where we left dialogue 1 was with the need to actually name the challenges. So in our second dialogue, which took place in August, the first one was in July, in our August dialogue, we moved more into the challenges, and the challenges were also in a 3-part conversation, but I want to jump to the very end of that conversation and share with you visually the metaphors that came up at the end of a discussion about the challenges, the barriers and the tensions. So these are the words at the top that were mentioned. And what was really apparent was that there was this mix of, somebody used the expression, you know, it's like being in a spacewalk without gravity. And, you know, others described it as we need to breathe deeper and we need to bring our curiosity. And we also need to recognize that there is a problem that we're trying to solve. And, you know, there's some barbed wire in the way. And others described it as like an onion, that, you know, we need to peel the onion, and that there is a sense of a coiled spring that has potential to spring further. It was a really evocative set of metaphors. And as I was reflecting on the conversation we had last time, and earlier today, I listened back to the whole of dialogue 2. There was an interesting conversation that we had about barriers. So I'd like to play you a further minute of video, which is a summary of the barriers that came up in answer to this question of what do we sense is in our way between where we are now and where we prefer to be. So this is another quick minute. The words that will flash up were words that were put in chat, but again, it's a good opportunity to center ourselves, to do some, you know, 4-square breathing, or, you know, deep breathing, or whatever way that you prefer to center yourself for the dialogue we're about to have. So 1 minute on barriers. So I'd just like to pause there and pull up that diagram that you just saw towards the end. There it is. So this particular word cloud, and thank you to Jason for putting this together. This came out of a discussion about needs, priorities, and conflict between the needs and priorities. And there were some key themes in that discussion that I just wanted to highlight to bring into today's conversation. So there was a sense of there being sort of no stability in the situation that we're in, and the mix of fear and confusion, and the need for cohesion to come out of that confusion. a number of people talked about how we want to challenge, but actually there's a tension between challenge and support of our clients. And this notion of needing to accommodate paradoxes. So we came up in the last dialogue with this important theme of paradoxes, many different paradoxes, in terms of working towards you know, choices that we want to make. So some talked about the you know, the paradox between things like economy and health, and also the paradoxes between social media and fake news versus the sort of real experience of what's going on. And also the important need to actually work with these tensions so that we can make sense of them, both for ourselves and also for our clients. And there was also a sense of learning to just be in order to navigate some of these transitions and challenges. So we then moved the discussion into where are we stuck and what are the collective tensions that we need to navigate. And what was fascinating here was that there was a sense that we want to be braver as a collective force for change, and we want to hold the space for something different to emerge in the world. But there are blockages. So some of the blockages that were mentioned were things like being stuck with this idea that we're in the period between pre and post COVID, rather than the idea that we're in permanent change. There was also a notion of we as coaches, you know, whether or not we should bring our own emotion and experiences to coaching. And the sense of, you know, another tension that was mentioned was compassion and competition, because whilst we want to activate a compassionate response, a caring response in the world, there's a lot of, you know, scarcity. Some people, you know, with, you know, lost jobs, lost vacations, and also the need to have some competition in order to win in their arenas. So there was a lot of tensions that were brought up, and I think, you know, a key tension that we also discussed was one that was brought into the equation by Peter Hawkins from his words at last year's Global Provider Summit, when he said, you know, where were all the coaches when the banks were burning, when we had the global financial crisis? And I played a short video of a challenge that David Clutterbuck brought up. So again, this is the final minute that I want to just share of the challenges that were discussed.
Problems that we have is so many people who join to coaching are people who are needy themselves, and whose thought processes are at a very low level in terms of cognitive development. So we find that very low levels of reflexive practice, for example. And in coach assessment centers, we find many coaches who've got hundreds of hours of coaching, but it's all the same. They haven't grown. They may have been on courses, but none of it's stuck. It's not changed. It may have changed the tools and techniques they use, but it hasn't changed who they are. And when we think about the 4 levels of coach maturity, going from a models-based approach where you're doing coaching to people, to a process-based approach where you're doing coaching with somebody, to a philosophy-based approach where you're integrating who you are with what you do. And then on to the systemic eclectic, where you step back and you see everything in a much more complex and accepting way, if you like. This whole process, many people, most coaches are still stuck at the first of those 2 levels. And so there's something that needs to happen for them in terms of their personal maturity to take them into team coaching, or we're finding that actually the journey into team coaching is enabling to advancing their personal maturity. So it's an interactive process.
And then here is the model that David's model of looking at coach maturity that he was describing in that video. And from that, I basically then, when we went back through all of the dialogue 2, we've summarized here as 3 kind of wants that came out from that challenges part of our 3-part dialogue. So the want to work systemically, and systemically being defined as, you know, the widest kind of possible influence in order to influence, you know, the leaders, teams, society, the world at large, to make something different happen, to make the move from being independent as independent professionals to interdependent, working with each other and with our clients through collaboration. And also to elevate the importance, role, skill, maturity and practice, which might be reflected in how we're being as coaches. But the end kind of outcome that's desired is that we're actually bringing forth a more caring and compassionate society. So I want to just pause there and just ask, so that was a summary of dialogues 1 and 2. That was important to do so that we're all kind of like on the same kind of like, you know, the end point of the second dialogue. So can I just pause there and ask if anybody who was either in those dialogues or heard something else in the recordings, anybody like to jump in and just add anything? A few people have joined since I last looked at the group. Hello, Martin. Hello, Catherine. Welcome, everybody. Manon, Elizabeth.
Does it all sound familiar to people as well? Going through the first and the second one again, it struck me as whether it seems the same or whether we've moved or whether we've just got more used to it, perhaps. And I don't know if anybody had any views on that as well.
I think, first of all, Geetu, thank you very much. A very useful summary for people that weren't involved and also for those of us who were. And I think that's what I was going to say, Nicola, that things seem to have moved on very rapidly, although there's certainly a lot of uncertainty. I mean, looking at the way the quarantine regulations have been brought in across the UK, in different countries in the UK, is mind-boggling, really, to be honest with you. But one of the paradoxes that is quite relevant at the moment with Extinction Rebellion ramping up their action is the paradox of return to economic growth versus impact to the environment and our ecosystem. And I think there is a lot of fear of return to some sort of old ways that is causing so much damage to the planet and to society. And also the growth in inequity between those that have and those that don't, and what is our collective response to that as a society, but also as individuals and as coaches. So I think, you know, there are a number of issues that continue to arise from the discussions that you stimulated, Geetu.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else want to comment at this point before we jump in?
I was wondering if there's much dialogue, similar dialogue going on kind of in anywhere else in, you know, in EMCC in general, if these themes are discussed anywhere else outside of this webinar, I suppose, to your knowledge.
Nicola, anything you're plugged into the...
I was racking my brain for some specifics.
Can I help on that?
Jafar, yes, please, thank you.
What we did with EMCC right at the beginning when the pandemic started from March, we had a series of weekly dialogues, which was open house really, anybody could come for 9 weeks. And in fact, that's coming back from next week because we had a lot of demand for it to come back. You should have received, if you haven't received, if you're an EMCC member, look in your inbox, invitation to participate. Again, it's open house, it's driven by you. I personally devoted sort of the last 6 months to providing this global support. EMCC was one of them, but also I've done it with various other people and other networks. Excuse me. Every week it's been 2 or 3 sessions like that. That's over and above this sort of dialogue. So I think there is a lot of reawakening that is happening. However, and this is my sort of a challenge, I think we need to reframe the whole thing about solution, the word solution, because I think the very fact that those of us who have lived since January, when it started, in December when it started in China, up to now, through the pandemic, it shows a degree of resilience and human adaptability. So I think first of all, we need to celebrate that. So amidst this feeling of loss, there's also, we've been able as human beings to find ways of managing ourselves. You can look at the quality of that. That's a separate issue, but we have managed to do that. I think we need to acknowledge that. But one of the things this is my reflection, having done this for the past 6 months globally with people from all over the world, really. I think thinking of the solution is not, for me, it's not appropriate, it's not relevant. There are lots of solutions, lots of approaches that have led us to this. And I think the future, as it unfolds, it brings its own ways of coping with it. By coping, I don't mean it in a sort of a negative way. I mean, sort of accepting it is also being able to influence. So I think solution probably, because solution for me, it's got a finality to it. You've solved it. I don't think that is appropriate in life anyway. But I think, especially in this particular case,
I saw a wonderful quote the other day, and you'll forgive me if I can't remember it exactly, but I think it says, what's the most important, the journey or the destination? And the answer is, it's the company. And the fact that we've been discussing what our needs and our challenges are in various different fora has been in itself quite transformative, because we've been able to do it together. And I think as we look towards future solutions, perhaps this has already been part of the solution.
So I want to say two quick things. I do think that today is very much about, given the earlier conversations, how do we move forward? I agree with you, Jafar. I don't think that we're talking about a single, defined solution. I think that that's important to acknowledge. But I also think that what I've sort of really witnessed in this EMCC dialogue together is that by somehow talking together, we are moving forward. And I've been reflecting on this quite deeply over the last, few months since we started this. I remember the first conversation Nicola and I had, it was just like, oh yeah, let's do 3 dialogues. We were discussing one. We're like, let's do 3 and let's sort of like build, one on the next. And I feel today that, we're already kind of halfway through our time. I'm feeling the kind of need to start to jump into the dialogue. So let me start by saying that I'd like to invite you to begin with to think about, if we were able to fully manifest, and I think it is manifest as opposed to implement, the right solutions, but if we were able to manifest the change that was articulated in that previous slide, I'm curious to understand how that would feel, if we were able to transform the way that we are currently operating collectively, in the ways that we want, what would that actually look like and feel like and sound like to us, as a metaphor? So I want to encourage us to use the chat, everyone, to think about if we move forward. So again, maybe solution isn't the right word, but if we manifest the right change, if we're able to manifest the right change that we desire. Yeah, take care, Rory. Thanks for joining us. What would that look like, feel like, or sound like as a metaphor? So choose your sense, but it would be great to hear from everybody in chat. I'm just going to time a quick minute for us to reflect on that. Barbara, do you want to just say a bit about what you're thinking there?
Well, from all the words that I've included, so togetherness, connectedness, open-heartedness, different than before, I think that actually what I'm feeling into now is that sense of a different than before. And with that comes a bit of an anxiety, because obviously if it's different from everything what was before, what does it mean? And it just means being, I think it means being really present and really connected to what is emerging, and that in itself is different from what was before, because a lot of the time we were in this doing space and the planning space rather than the space of, you know, emergent space. So yeah, that's my thinking.
Thank you. Anyone else want to jump in?
I think I'd pick up on what Nicola was saying, that things have already begun to evolve. I'm actually coming fresh from a network meeting. I'm one of the coordinators, and one of the things that we sought today was actually some feedback on what they would like to see going forward. And I think because we've been networking online and have been doing that fairly regular, the things that I'm seeing flashed up were the things that were getting played back today in the session, that people have felt that they're now part of a very safe community, one where they can feel comfortable exploring ideas and looking forward, and just taking that time out, you know, to reflect, but then also to handle some of the very practical issues. I mean, you know, one today, for example, was that anxiety of people coming back into the workplace, and, you know, seeing that in coaching clients and that kind of thing. So I think Nicola's right. I think it's already begun to evolve, and it's how we capitalise that, and I think not revert back to how things were before.
Thank you, Gail. Elizabeth, did you?
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of words that have jumped out, and I think I heard safe and being able to move forward. And I think there was this thing, definitely to begin with, trying to calm and reduce the anxiety. But I think for me, the solution, I'm going to have to, I will let it go, but I think I am hung up on the word solution, because I agree with Jafar. This solution sounds definitive. This is fluid. It's evolving. It isn't one answer. It is this continuous journey. And what I think also for me, I found quite interestingly, listening to David Clutterbuck, it was about this, you know, this deeply reflective. We really need to understand ourselves and be ourselves and know ourselves inside out. And I think for me then, the looking at going forward is how can we really embody that in I was going to say industry and our sector, to really make sure that this is through and through, because my concern is everybody has been going through and getting their accreditation. So we've got all these coaches coming through, they've become accredited, but where is this beautiful, deeply reflective practice? And how then, because that challenges us. And it does bring peace and calm, and we do evolve, but we need to be challenged and a bit of provocation. I could be a bit off the wall with those thoughts, but I mean, I feel I have changed so much over the last 6 months. And for me, part of my fear is I've changed that much that actually I'm a different coach. And that then is going to be a different experience for my clients. But I guess we have all changed, including our clients, and we are all continuing to, and it isn't stopping, it will continue.
Thank you. Thank you, Elizabeth. I think with that said, I'm keen to ask you about what I put up earlier. So in terms of our kind of views on what it is that we want, I want to just see if there's anything from what's just been said and from your own thoughts, anything you want to add, remove, change from this summary which came out of Dialogue 2. So this point about reflection, is deep reflection in there, for example, and this notion of being different to how we were before. So anyway, I want, you know, I want everybody to jump in and just say, like, if there was like a summary of kind of like what we're actually seeking collectively. Is it this, or is it something else? Are there things missing? This was just like a starter from that conversation. There was a lot that was shared. So maybe you could write in chat any thoughts on it so that we can hear from everyone. So just, I wanted to just ask a few people to comment. So how do we know that's an issue today? So, Martin, do you want to just say a bit about your comments that you've made, just to bring you in?
Yeah, I mean, I'm reading the slide and trying to find a solution, but I guess I don't understand the challenge. I wasn't involved in the first two dialogues, so maybe that came out from there. I saw David's video now where he says that coaches aren't growing, they're staying at level 1. Personally, from the work I've done and the coaches around me, I don't hear that feedback from the marketplace, from clients. So I'm just struggling to say I have to think about a solution. From my mind, it's really about we're not there enough for people. They're not enough people knowing about coaching is available. Maybe it's different in the UK and Ireland and other geographies than it is here in the Czech Republic. But I think we just need to get out there more and get the awareness increased and have people more involved in realizing that coaching is something they can use as a tool in both times of troubles, but also in personal growth as well. So I guess I have a challenge looking at my marketplace and what's happening here in the Czech Republic with finding a solution.
Yeah, thank you, Martin. Anna, could you speak to what you said about being clear? Can you just say a bit more about that?
Yeah, thank you. And I just wanted to acknowledge first how great was your summary. It really helped reconnect with this content. So what I mean is that my feeling, we really need to be clear about what is that we bring when we are working with our clients and what that enables in our clients. Because I would say to work with our clients, it's the medium for them to do something that is meaningful. And so it's about creating this psychological safety space where people can go deeper in the understanding of this VUCA world, and so have insights that enable them to find ways to interact and then to enable also something more powerful. And sometimes I have this feeling that, well, it's just this. So I just sit with my client and I listen to him or to her. And the sensation is that, yes, that's what I do. And simultaneously, that requires so much. And I completely agree that we need to be an instrument in itself. So we need to know who we are. We need to evolve as adults. I've been very interested in this vertical development approach and adult development. So how am I able to understand who I am? What are my maturity in the way I think, in the way then I act? Because it's, you know, all is connected. And I know from my own experience how important it is to be connected with people with whom I feel safe. And if I'm feeling safe, I am able to open up and to find different ways of being and then acting. So that's what I mean. I hope to have been clear. So I think to conclude, I think we need to really to be very sharp and clear about what is that we do and what is that we bring, and how important is to stop, to reflect, and to make meaning, and what this enables to the world. Because it looks so simple. It looks like, you know, everyone can do it, and I guess there is a lot of complexity, and it's also is to understand that.
Okay, thank you very much, Anna. So wow, so listening to all of those comments, it seems to me that very important things that have been added to this, and you may want to either jot these down, or maybe Nicola, you can jot them into chat so that we carry them into the next part of our dialogue. There's this real sense that we need to celebrate the adaptability that we have shown, you know, so far in these 6 months that we've lived, you know, through COVID-19 and all the other related things that have gone on in the world. There's also this sense that, you know, there is an emergent kind of different way compared to before. And that in that difference, you know, there's some deep kind of callings to both deeply understand ourselves, you know, so that we can be the instrument, be part of the instrument that can, you know, support the, you know, the world, support the work that we're doing, but also to bring kind of deeply reflective practice, which is part of the maturity that David Clutterbuck touched on. And in parallel with that, getting really clear about who we are, what we bring, how we actually want to take action, how we actually want to show up and in our professional work as coaches. So it sounds like as we move now to this final part, so this final part is about how can we achieve that sort of vision in the way that it's been articulated today. So to pick up the earlier point, it's not about like single solutions, but it's really about, you know, what actions can we take? So this is an opportunity really to share, you know, the actions that some people in the dialogue are already taking, as well as actions that we want to take. So Nicola, could I invite you to maybe open up a whiteboard page? And so this is all about what actions can we take and do we want to take? So we'll just take a couple of minutes to reflect on this and to capture some thoughts on this together.
Is everybody okay? Can you all get into see it? Does anybody else need any help with tech? This looks great.
So let's hear from, you know, a few of these. So could somebody just pick out something that you're curious about, and then we'll have that person speak to that theme.
I don't know if it's green on everybody's, but I'd be interested in whoever put that, expanding on what they meant when we can no longer leave self outside, as to how they see that being different.
We can, so on the left there, we can no longer leave self outside, but have to somehow use ourself to be truly in partnership with Coachee. Could somebody speak to that, please?
Yeah, it was myself actually that wrote that. I think it's this idea of challenging long-held beliefs in the coaching profession about what it is to be a coach and how one should coach. Goes back to some of Jafar's points about being objective, solution-led, that you always come out with an action plan, etc. It's very much an executive business coaching attitude. And it doesn't ring true really to enter into some sort of coaching arrangement nowadays, given what we've said, if you're not bringing yourself in and recognizing yourself with your client and working with that. And I know there are many coaches that already do that, but there are many who don't, who see this client-professional relationship very much as, you know, and just even saying a client and having that contract to some extent, in a way, sets you apart, doesn't bring yourself, doesn't allow for full integration and co-production. And it certainly can be a barrier to thinking systemically with your client. So that's what I was getting at really, was challenging some of these ideas that we have developed in terms of giving ourselves a professional status, perhaps. You know, the other one I put up there is about intervening with our coaches. And there are a lot of, including Peter Hawkins, is saying, well, why are we in that position? We should be intervening. We should be making a difference. We should be challenging where necessary, etc. And I think many coaches have a challenge in trying to do so.
Thank you, Richard. Anyone else? Oh my goodness, it's 1 minute. There seems to be an important theme here about this, you know, global strategy for raising awareness of what coaching can offer. and this getting out the message about the benefits that coaching brings. There seems to be some theme here about, you know, our collective stance about coaching that is coming through, certainly coming through to me. And also there seems to be a number of things about our inner kind of journey, in terms of, you know, knowing our values, promoting our work in an authentic way, and, you know, this idea of, you know, what you just touched on, Richard, with, you know, you can't leave self outside. Got to be, you know, both the inner and the outer journey.
Can I just ask, do you think some of that though is to do with where people are geographically and how coaching is viewed in different territories? So the UK is quite sophisticated, but then maybe in other territories it isn't so well known, and their viewpoint there is that's where there needs to be more education. But I suppose as a profession, maybe it's evolving at a different pace in different areas. So I mean, I don't know, but I'm just wondering whether that has something to do with it.
Any thoughts on this? Any thoughts from anyone?
Well, I put the global strategy because I don't think there is a wide understanding of what coaching can bring. I think certain organisations, yes, will be very experienced and very familiar with it, but I think there are many communities that are not aware of how powerful coaching can be. And, you know, there's very different perceptions of what coaching is. So I definitely think that there is a need for more awareness and education about the benefits that can be gained. So in answer to your point, Elizabeth, it may be country, but I don't see that in the UK, for example, which is where I am the same as you. I do think there are big gaps in people's understanding of what coaching means.
I think Gail's correct, actually, and I'd certainly emphasise that. I think there are some very warped views about coaching out there in society, and what has frustrated me more than anything else is the lack of accessibility to many vulnerable groups and others who I think would have benefited and could still benefit from a coaching approach, and organisations that need to adopt a coaching culture as well in terms of their leadership. That is a very big area for development and is sadly lacking.
So there seem to be themes around the sort of accessibility of coaching as well as the education and awareness raising. There seems to be another important theme about that inner work of a coach, but also the peer communities of practice and the co-creation like we're doing in this dialogue. And also there's another theme that seems to be coming through, which is about the systemic theme, sort of looking at different levels of coaching. I added this thing here on the right about multi-generational coaching in a very sort of very embryonic way. We've been experimenting in our practice with more seasoned leaders coming together with, you know, 17 to 23-year-old kind of like first job in the workplace, you know, to co-create the learning in COVID. And that's been very experimental, but actually very interesting in terms of co-coaching, but across generations, two ways. And I think that there is, you know, that there's an interesting piece here about, I think someone said it earlier, it's like what we knew in the past may not be the ways that we're going forward now in the future. I'm conscious that we're 5 minutes past. I don't know where the time's gone today. So I'm going to start to bring this to a close. So as we said at the outset, this was all about co-creating the next stage. And as a final question here, this last question here, I would love to hear in chat everybody's thoughts on, if there are a couple of words on what you believe the coaching kind of profession should stand for, what are those 2 words? If you only had 2 words to describe this kind of progression of how we want to be as coaches, what would your 2 words be? So Martin says safe place. 2 words that would sum up sort of what our final kind of like, you know, progression, what we're thinking is based on what we've discussed, and it could serve as a summary of where we've ended up. Share awareness. Martin needs to drop off. Thank you for joining us, Martin. Confident reassurance, motivational yet challenging, nurturing catalyst, growth and self-awareness, challenge and support, our humanity, credibility and approachable, being authentic, living to values, gentle and support. Ksenia, gentle and support, raising awareness and responsibility, partnership. Wow. Okay, so as a final sort of word of thank you, I know that with this type of dialogue, it really has been like a co-creation, and what we'll be doing from here, from today, is sharing back these outputs, and we'll also be sharing the video of this recorded session. And if anybody wants to, you know, stay connected on this, you know, you're more than welcome to reach out. And I think in the survey that Nicola sends out, there's a question about, do you want to stay connected on this topic so that we can, you know, maybe we meet again, maybe there's another series that needs to start, but we'll wait for your feedback before we jump too far into that. So I'll just stop sharing there. It's been a real pleasure to facilitate this, and Nicola, thanks a million for all your support. Without you, no one would know how to connect, where to connect. And you've been guiding us all the way. And also to all of you, you know, there's many of you who've been here since the start, and I just want to really acknowledge, you know, the commitment to showing up and to being part of this. Thank you very much.
Geetu, I'm you know, speaking on behalf of EMCC Global, this global GPS dialogue series. It's just been enlightening. Thank you so much for your generosity of time and leadership in this particular area, and thank to everybody who's been taking part in this session and the previous sessions as well, for just coming and being so insightful and so generous with your thoughts. It's been a pleasure, and I think we have moved quite a way, and I think some of the movement has been through this discussion, some of this has been through the passage of time, but it's felt a safe movement. I've put just a link in there to that quote I sent earlier on as well. It's felt a very, very safe and supportive journey and set of discussions. Geetu, thank you very, very, very much for leading this valuable.
Thank you.
Thanks to everybody, frankly. We don't have a dialogue without all the voices. So thank you.
That's
Right.
right. And we'll send down a recap and recordings afterwards. Take care, everybody. Go well.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.